Good afternoon and welcome to I-24 News Special Edition covering the British Prime Minister David Cameron's visit to Israel. We will shortly be going straight to the Knesset, Israel's parliament, where Mr. Cameron is due to address the members of Knesset and the Israeli public. I am joined in studio throughout today's special edition by two guests, Jason Perlin, a British-Israeli media strategist, and the UK director of The Face of Israel, an Israeli government initiative to improve an appreciation of Israel in the UK. Hi, Jason. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And by Renee Singer from the Israel, Britain and the Commonwealth Association here in Israel. Renee, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So, Jason, a first visit in 4 years. Many in Israel, at least within the diplomatic circle, are raising eyebrows that it's taken him so long to come here on an official visit.
I think that in reality, foreign policy and certainly this corner of the Middle East has probably slipped from the agenda for the British public and therefore for the British politicians.
Has Cameron been a bit too silent on the Israeli-Palestinian peace process?
I would say he has, but I think he has good reason because maybe he didn't want to get in the way of Tony Blair, who is one of the quartet and is busy, apparently trying to get things sorted out here with the Palestinians. So maybe there has been a reason why he has chosen this moment to come. When things, I think, in relations, apparently, according to the British Embassy anyway, are excellent with Britain.
Is there internal pressure that Cameron is facing in the UK to go this or that way vis-a-vis Israel? Renee?
I think there's always pressure on on Britain to make peace with Israel. Excuse me. I think the BDS, the problems now with the boycott, may be a reason why he chose to bring 15 businessmen here. Apparently, trade between Israel and England has never been as good. I think there's $4 billion a year, billion pounds a year. So that looks good. I think Matthew Gord has formed this. That's the British ambassador, has formed this hub high tech, which is doing brilliantly well. And maybe he feels that it's a safe ground to come here now.
The opposition we're seeing now is boycotting the Prime Minister's Benjamin Netanyahu's speech. We saw quite a few of them leave the plenary session. That was Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu building up a very strong argument there for Israel as the Jewish homeland for the Jewish people, giving an overview of historical ties between Jews and the land of Israel starting from the 19th century, making his way up to present day. Well, the pressure is definitely on. I think if he doesn't say anything about Israel as being the Jewish homeland, Netanyahu's speech will have almost been a waste of time. He did make a very logical argument why the Jews should be entitled to a homeland and why it should also be considered as a Jewish homeland. And he also completely rejects any kind of idea of narrative, which is a pretty strong rhetoric to put in front of the UK leader. Renee, is it maybe too much of a strong blow to Cameron before you get to
I don't think so. I think it says that the ties between Israel and England go far deeper and longer than the current political situation, wherever it might be. Talking about the Balfour Declaration. By the way, IPCA, Israel, Britain and Commonwealth, we have a Balfour dinner every year, and we invite speakers from England and from here to talk about the importance of the Balfour Declaration and why. So I think it goes to historical roots. Netanyahu talked about football. He didn't talk about Trini and Susanna and the way.
But there were cultural references.
The culture and the theatre. And you know, Israelis love. I think they love England. They love to be associated with England. We feel very much part of England living here.
And he also, if we would take it now to the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, he made it very clear that the Palestinians' refusal to recognize Israel, that is the core of the conflict and not the settlement. So he's putting up a lot of arguments before Cameron's speech, kind of building up a very, very strong argumentative case for Israel. It's going to be hard almost, if you see it as almost a debate, for Cameron to not say anything about this or kind of just talk about tech or science, which we barely heard from Netanyahu.
Well, I wonder what the process has been. I wonder whether each side saw each other's script and speech before delivery.
Right.
I wonder whether Cameron would act off the cuff on that stage. I doubt it, to be honest. But I think that these issues are probably agreed in advance. I think that the Prime Minister Cameron needn't. I actually, to be honest, I'm not sure. It doesn't feel like such a jump for him to say that Israel is a Jewish country, that the land of Israel has connections to Judaism. As Netanyahu said, these are not rhetorics and thought. This is historical fact. The only people who deny the historical fact are those who are attempting to delegitimize the very existence of the Jewish people in Israel for whatever reason. So I wouldn't be surprised if Cameron makes moves towards that anyway. We will see in the next few moments. I don't want to predict the future.
Indeed. There are many historical references. Balfour was just one of the many historical references. He goes all the way back to the 19th century, speaking about Jews' contribution and so forth. How much of it is known today within the British public? I mean, perhaps on the Israeli street, much is not known either. So it's not a fair comparison. But the strong connection between the UK and the Jews and the plight of Zionism was very strong once. How much of it is known today?
I don't know. I think people tend to forget these things. We move on and history is forgotten. But older people like myself, we know it. We were here. We understand 1948. We understand what the mandate was. And we understand that Britain has created the situation in a way of where we are today with the Palestinians and with our territories. And, so we can blame them.
I don't think Netanyahu is attributing blame. I think, if anything, he's paying tribute to the role that Britain has played in the formation of the State of Israel. And let's not kid ourselves. Britain has a very difficult history. The Mandate was not a good period for anyone, really, as indeed the imperial period was not really something we should look back on in history.
Netanyahu does touch upon that. He says it is not a colonial guilt that Israel was born out of the British Mandate, but it was because of the British support of the Jewish people. He does try to make that differentiation because that is something that you hear today. Right,
and that does echo through the corridors of Westminster and does filter into British society. There's no doubt that people on the streets of the UK are not aware, and why should they be necessarily, of the intricacies of British-Israeli history. But what I think does beyond that, and what Netanyahu was hinting at with the football and other references, does definitely resonate, is that there is a shared understanding. Britain and the UK and Israel are both democracies. There are Israeli players in the UK. You go to football grounds in the UK where they do have Israeli players, and you'll see Israeli flags flying quite proudly, not necessarily by Israelis, but by supporters of the team who are following that player particularly. So I don't think there's a gut reaction that we're trying to fight against here. There's a lot of shared common ground, and the fact that Trini and Susanna, etc., come to Israel and Royal Chef or whatever else Israeli TV wants to throw at us and pretend is British culture, it only helps, and
not
it's
to
positive.
Mention Downton Abbey.
And Downton Abbey could possibly
maybe
be
the cultural ties are
diplomatic.
He did say that the football ties will be harder to solve or conflict than the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
I believe that Yitzhak Herzog is speaking right now, leader of the opposition. We shouldn't forget that his father was the 6th president of Israel, and he was I think he was a colonel or a lieutenant or an officer anyway in the British Army in 1948, in the Air Force. And ties go back.
It is vital we do all we can with our international partners to preserve the site at Auschwitz, which I'll be visiting later this year. But we need to do more, and that is why I've set up the Holocaust Commission in Britain. A number of the commissioners are here with Ben and me today. And as we visit Yad Vashem together later today, our pledge to Ben will be that Britain will never forget what he and his fellow survivors have taught us. We will preserve the memory of that generation for every generation to come.
Renee, quickly, this was a very much friendly speech, more than the British Prime Minister David Cameron there speaking about his personal attachment to the Jewish people, saying that he's committed that the memory of the Holocaust survivors will never die, speaking, of course, of Britain's contribution to the start of Israel, speaking about the Balfour Declaration, saying it came from a vision to a plan. This is right, of course, after the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke himself extensively about Balfour, a speech pushing forward a specific policy.
Certainly, and I'm actually a little bit surprised, but he made a speech that I think every Israeli will be very happy to hear.
Indeed. Renee Singer, Jason Perlman, thank you for joining me today for this special edition on David Cameron.